Carolyn Holzman, and this is Confessions of an SEO. Congratulations, you've come across, again, the least SEO podcast on the planet. So welcome to the Mountain Edition 2024 of Confessions of an SEO. I'm coming to you from the mountains of Western North Carolina on this third episode of the summer of 2024. Kind of sounds like we're at the beach, except it's the mountains. I really just, I think it just goes to show you that if you can get internet, one can work anywhere. This week's topic is a bit like last week's topic in that it took another unexpected turn. Now, last week's episode, I admit, was a rant-isode about so many SEOs teach and so many have been trained to absorb SEO without any nuance or context or never confronting our own assumptions, even about the technical side of Google, and continue to talk and absorb SEO as if SEO is only one thing. And whatever that one thing is, suffices. And then people move on to the next thing, the next one thing. And here, a lot of us, I think, sit as professionals feeling like we're just the victims of the search algorithm update, whichever one just hit. And because we were hit and we're angry, it absolves us of any responsibility to hone our craft and, more importantly, think critically about what we are told. Now, I understand this is not just the SEO industry, but it's the one that I'm in. But it is the fact, it's like this begs the question. Is the fact that it's everywhere justification to not attempt to carve away at the edges to be just a little better, a little more informed? Now, if you've heard me before, you know my answer to that. I know I get a little soapboxy, and I figure, every industry needs that someone to go out and just sort of call out to their own industry to want to be better. So I guess now you're not at the beach anymore. The idea for this week came from a discussion that took place on World Events and was quite persuasive with their definition of how justice is viewed. And specifically, even how we've internalized that in our own life. And the point of it was basically a lot of us were taught that justice means that an eye for an eye equals justice. But that clearly it has to be a false belief because in this case, outside of the literal description of it, kind of like talking at it in terms of energy. The thing that moves us, the thing that we assume to be true, and it's so deep down we don't even consciously are aware of it. And full warning, as far as today's show, I'm going to talk about something really subtle, and it's going to get a little philosophical. I think that's where we're going. But I promise I will tie it all up together for you in just a little bit on how all this reverts back to the SEO industry. And so just to explain a little deeper, that the idea was, this is like a statement that was used. It's kind of like, if I want this something, I have to give up something else. And again, this is something that we've internalized, that we do this to our own thought process. And that statement is like a form of eye for an eye justice. And what was interesting in the conversation, they even used one of my favorite movies, The Sound of Music. Both was my favorite because it was about Austria, and I always wanted to go, and a family that eventually found their way to Vermont, which is where I do go. But it was used, the storyline was used as an example of what they meant when they were talking about the underlying belief in eye for an eye justice. Just when the main character, Maria, had everything she could have ever wanted, the happiness of a family, a husband, wealth, a house, all that she could have ever hoped for. She had to give it up and run from the Nazis. Now that's a new interpretation that I hadn't considered and I understand the purpose of using the movie was to illustrate how skilled we are humans when we take beliefs that we maybe didn't even think about in the front part of our brain, we just sort of internalize them. Because, that's pretty subtle on my scale. I had, as I was thinking about this, I started thinking about the topic I had shared in episode 17, which was talked about the 3 stages of truth. You can go back and listen to it if you've missed it. I'll put the link in the description. The short version is 3 stages of truth are ridicule, opposition, and then acceptance, but not on a timeline. This is from an actual philosopher, German to be precise, and I guess you could call him a real glass is half full kind of guy. I've been interested in human behavior for most of my adult life because, well, quite frankly, some of it baffles me. And I definitely do the phone a friend option in life to get perspective when that kind of stuff happens. Now, I would say it's been interesting since I published my helpful content analysis, which has been validated over and over, from spammers to actual sites to even the leaked Google API document that no one really has talked about the helpful content portion of that leak. I will. If there's anyone who wonders what the helpful content system targets, wonder no more, okay? It's been figured out. Now, what remains is to tease out the subtleties of how a site and the signals from that site to Google get confused when it comes to what they measure. Now, for those in the back, you can go to carolynholzmanseo.com. You'll land on a page, and it'll be an offer where you can buy the guide. Now, so you have that, like, big thing figured out, and then you throw on top of that a public service announcement related to the helpful content, but it's one where I talked about sites that had gotten hit with the September 2023 helpful content update that use table of contents. And the table of contents, usually it's a plugin, and it produces jump links for every page where a table of content is lit. And so between those two things, kind of got a big earful of what I did, in short, was I tested the SEO industry for its ability to take in new information about what we think we know, or maybe even what we think we could possibly know. I'm sure the SEO industry behaved like every other, and I don't want to editorialize it. I just want to observe it. So, when I say I tested it, going back to Schopenhauer's philosophy, like how do we as humans accept new information, new insight, things that maybe were not brought forward before. So, those 3 things: ridicule, sure; opposition, definitely. But the next stop is acceptance. And I think that proves that's kind of like evidence that everything is on the right track. There's nothing to worry about here. It's just a matter of time. And for myself, there's nothing to do other than to keep speaking what I see to be true. And those are the things I can speak about. Evidence that points to the most likely explanation for the things that I'm seeing. So now back to the eye for an eye concept. So playing around with this, looking at it, what might be triggering opposition from an operational distinction, right? Eye for an eye energy. What might that look like or sound like? So I came up with a couple of things. I don't know if this is true, but they kind of fell in line with some of what I was saying. For instance, if I accept whatever this thing is, this new thing is true, then I have to give up something in order to accept it. If I accept what I think is true, I have to make you give up what you think is true. Or if this is true, it means everything else is false. Now, those sound like reasonable conclusions, but I think they're reasonable conclusions on what may be a false belief. Kind of like, tearing all this apart. Mercury as an element, and I guess the only way to describe it, you can't split it up, and that's a cohesion force element, part of Mercury as an element. So I was remembering, and this was back in the days of no car seats or seat belts. In junior high, I remember one science lab when we were given little drops of actual mercury with toothpicks. And we were instructed to try and take that one drop and make it into two, which certainly at that age sounded easier than it ended up being. But it was a terrific way to keep kids interested in science, albeit a little on the danger side. However, kind of like it's interesting how our minds have this, strong cohesive force when we maybe see new information, and so we think it creates this binary choice, which is limiting. But what if there was an approach to take in new information that didn't create this false binary choice, something that created more discussion? I don't know that these things just happen naturally. I think we have to sort of hit up against our beliefs and then look at them, right? So we didn't know they were there, but, here comes this new information and bang, So I came up with what might be some other possibilities. What if I accept this as true, it doesn't mean that I have to give up everything I think I know. It just means that I'm looking at something I haven't considered before, and raises the question: what possible? What could be something else? Anything else that could have yielded this result? And mind you, this is got to be built on data. This isn't just built on an opinion of, no. And further, if I accept something is true, nobody else has to be made to give up what they think is true. I have looked over all of this information and realized the conclusion I came up to continues to get validated. So I accept it as true, but I don't feel like anybody else has to give up anything. They don't have to give up their belief if they don't want to, right? It's a free country for now. And if this is true, whatever this thing is I'm looking at, what assumptions do I use without consciously being aware of them that may block my ability to consider that what I'm hearing might be a possibility? If this is true, it doesn't necessarily immediately mean that everything else is false. In short, two things can be true at the same time. And in my experience, this is especially accurate when looking at different types of sites in Google. We can see it with our own eyes. So let's consider enterprise sites and a 10-page plumber site. Enterprise sites could be subject to different rules than a 10-page plumber site. A 10-page plumber site could experience different results within Google than the enterprise sites experience. Likewise, some sites using table of contents could have been hit by helpful content, and other sites using table of content plugins and their jump links were not hit with the helpful content system. So all of these things can be true at the same time. Now, many SEOs, some seem to this is their thing, right? They point out discrepancies in Google search results. Now, they seem to stop at the point of providing any context or original thought as to why that might be. In fact, some seem to bristle at the mere possibility of bringing original thought to understanding any algorithm. And the thinking is because the algorithm is so complex, no one can understand it, so it's foolish to try. One of the reasons I enjoy SEO testing so much is it's another example of, SEO testing is not given, I think, the respect that it should have, that it's very often treated as the red-haired stepchild of SEO. All right. So again, through, let's say, this lens of eye for an eye energy, if I think it's possible to understand a portion of the algorithm, I have to give up something. I don't know what that is, but I'm saying that seems to be, one could explain the reactions through that, is that, nobody likes to give up anything, right? So my question is, why? Why would you? Maybe I would have to give up ignoring the fact that, let's say, I'm not even trying through my own efforts at all to understand the algorithm. Maybe that's really what's going on. And here's the real kicker, I suppose. I wonder if sometimes it's like thinking, well, I have to give up the idea that I know everything there is to know about what I'm doing, and maybe work a little harder to hone my skills. I mean, to be honest, when I hear something that immediately I'm thinking like, I don't know about that. That's exactly what I'm thinking, is that maybe there's something there. Maybe I don't have to give up everything that I know to consider it. Maybe I have to work a little harder. Now, there was a complaint, and I just used air bunnies. There was a complaint lobbed at Google from a write-up from someone who is, to be fair, trying to make affiliate money out of Google search, complaining about their competitors outranking them for the purpose of making money, and going through item by item of how they, the competitors, have violated Google's own best practices. They compared it to a list of Google best practices. And I'm absolutely certain the activity to complete all of that, to pull all that out, took a lot of time. I also happen to understand their site a little, and frankly, marveled that at some of the items on the list that they accuse their competitors of using are also being used on their site. But it was a notable effort. Let's put it that way. The response from Google was actually the nicest attempt to date to kind of explain on a visceral level how search works. In short, the answer was, we work at scale. We can adjust our algorithm, but it's going to kind of impact every site. We can't just only benefit one site, or, it's not something we can do. It's not something we can afford to do. Now, at the point being, it's kind of like this marketer is complaining that other marketers are outranking him only because they want to make money, and Google was helping them to do so. So I started to look at this through this lens of, what is going on underneath there, that was generating all of this angst. And I don't know, but it is my opinion that the following statements could potentially be another way to say everything that took all that time to write up, which is I'd be better off if other people did something different, right? It's their fault, not mine. I can't get what I want because other people are cheating. Or I'm not ranking where I should be because Google sucks. Now, in a world full of possibilities, I guess the only option for this particular site was for the site owner to cry foul. But I ask you, what else other than our own actions can we control? What else other than our actions can we justify building a business on? It is possible that Google sucks. But isn't it also just as possible that the strategy on that site could be improved? Again, two things can be true at the same time. Google can provide imperfect results, and a site could be improved to conform what Google wants. Now, I know I feel a lot better considering that I have ability to hone skills and accept that what I know may need to be refined. And even in that case, I don't really see myself as I have to give anything up on that. I suppose the only thing I have to give up, and why wouldn't I want to, is a false belief, which never served me anyway. Now, this is why I get a lot out of SEO testing, along with the ability, I guess you say, to believe my lying eyes. So I do this, this is me, right? I'm not saying everybody's got to be like me, but I do think that we need to look at what we believe and what we think about what we believe. Because if you're in search of truth, nothing is sacred. And when I mean nothing is sacred, even the things that I think I know. Well, that's it for me for this week. To stay on the cutting edge of the state of indexing in Google, check out Crawl or No Crawl on Substack. And again, if you think you have a site that's been hit by the helpful content system, reach out to me. You can email confessions@AmericanWayMedia.com, or you can just add Gmail to your search console and reach out to me. And that Gmail is helpfulcontentsystem@gmail.com. And note, all submissions are confidential. Thank you for being a listener. If you have questions or topic ideas, I want to hear from you. You can text Confessions 512-222-3132. Thanks again, and until next week, I'll see you in the SERPs.